Tonight, it's the State of the Union that almost wasn't. And as the big moment draws near, the prospect of bipartisanship is looking flimsier by the minute. First, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer shared his great expectations for tonight.
The recent government shutdown speaks to the fundamental uncertainty about the state of our union. The state of our union is in need of drastic repair.
To which Trump responded on Twitter, "I see Schumer is already criticizing my State of the Union speech, even though he hasn't seen it yet. He's just upset that he didn't win the Senate." A stirring show of unity if I've ever seen one. But with just a week and a half left to reach a deal that would avoid a national emergency declaration or yet another government shutdown, tonight's address is Trump's last high-profile chance to make his case for the wall. And as he's coming in prepared, using his guest list to make his case. Among those he's invited are a Homeland Security special agent, 3 family members of a couple killed by an undocumented immigrant, and a recovering opioid addict. And then there's the study in contrast, Vice President Pence and Speaker Pelosi sitting just off each of the president's shoulders. Joining me to discuss are Wilnelia Rivera, founder of Rivera Consulting and chief strategist for Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley's campaign. It's good to meet you. Thanks so much for being here. David King is a senior lecturer in public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School. Hello to you, David.
Hello.
And former state treasurer and Trump supporter is Joe Malone. Joe, it's good to see you. Let me start with you. So the president's speaking of bipartisanship and comedy, C-O-M-I-T-Y, not E-D-Y, while he's threatening to unilaterally declare a national emergency. How do you reconcile those two things?
So I think tone is everything, and the tweet you just showed is the wrong tone.
From the president?
From the president, absolutely.
Are you a pod person, or are you
if
yourself?
I had his ear, I would beg him to change the tone, because 2 years into his presidency now, people can only take so much of the divisiveness, and he needs to be the one who raises the debate.
Well, I will say what I thought he was going to say, but did not.
Sorry.
I think Schumer should have kept his mouth closed. If it turns out he really wants a bipartisan outcome here, don't criticize a speech before you've heard it. No?
I actually agree with that 100%. And the reason why I agree with that is that we're at a time right now where Democrats generally are trying to figure out what the upper hand will be in this upcoming session, and trying to send out preemptive strikes before we even know what the president is going to say just really doesn't feel like it brings the dial any forward for those of us that really care about what this upcoming, what this upcoming Congress can do for the country.
You're the guy who does the bipartisan training for the newly elected members. I
That's
just realized.
Right. It's really working out so well.
So my sense is, listening to what Trump had to say and listening to what Schumer had to say, neither side wants bipartisanship. I mean, is that not a fair statement to make?
I don't think it's fair.
Why?
Yeah, the theatrics of it, sure, they want to kind of rile up their own bases. But there's a strong sense on the Hill that they need to get something done. Now, will they get anything done quickly on the wall and on immigration? Probably not. But the president is likely to raise other issues where there should be some consensus. Maybe.
Yeah, but that's, if you were sitting here last year, David, you would have said infrastructure is the thing. He mentioned it in his State of the Union. Everybody wants it. The only problem is one wants government to pay $1 trillion and one wants the private sector to pay $1 trillion. So what is that issue where theoretically they could all work together and not look like the most dysfunctional bunch of people on the planet? What is it?
Well, the big difference from last year to this is now the Democrats have the House, and it's in their strong interest to try and get something working together, especially on infrastructure reform. I think that bill is going to move. There's also going to be moving legislation on prescription benefits. We'll see where these things go. But while there's a lot of heat and energy around the division, I think we'll see some progress on the Hill.
Are you that optimistic?
Not as optimistic as you are. I think Senator McConnell continues to be a roadblock. The optimist in me points to the same issues that you pointed out.
He sponsored a resolution the other day criticizing the president for his withdrawal plans for Syria and Afghanistan,
I think,
joined by a lot of Democrats, by the way.
Yeah, but I think the senator has shown us for much longer than just the Trump years, but even going back to the Obama years, that he wants to be disruptive in the legislative process. And I also think we don't talk enough about his role in all of this, right? Because I do think that there is a pathway to get legislation done in these next 2 years, but if the Senate is not going to be a part of that process in some way, I think that's also going to be problematic.
Is there any reason for this speech to, I don't just mean Donald Trump's speech. I mean, every year, it's like Groundhog Day on this show. We have the same discussion. What is the point? I'm with Thomas Jefferson. Submit a letter or a document
Old school
to
way,
the
huh?
Congress.
Old school way.
I'm serious. Is there ever? Can you remember one State of the Union? I remember one. Bill Clinton saying the era of big government is over. I wept when I heard him say it. But I'm serious.
But I think in the past it was a way in which to remind both parties that, hey, we got an agenda here. Let's work together. Reach over the no.
It's like Jack in the Box.
No, but
the party in power is the president's party pops up when he says something. But the other side sits on their hands.
The fact that you have them all in the same room, and there's this and that. But let me go to this point, Jim, and that is that tonight is an opportunity for Trump, and he may not seize it, but tonight's an opportunity after 2 years again to say, look, let's find some common ground here. Let's solve some problems. If he's smart enough to do that, and they've all got their consultants, they've all got people chipping in their ass, if he's smart enough to do that, he wins the night.
Has any president ever changed the tenor of a national debate, even if it wasn't as low rent as this one is?
Not in your lifetime. Not in your lifetime or mine.
With a State of the Union speech.
No, it's a public show. I think that the onus is actually on the Democrats tonight. We have a sense for how Donald Trump will behave, right? It's how he usually does. He'll be bombastic. He'll try and get people agitated. It'll be very interesting to see how people react to that on the Democratic side of the aisle. They probably shouldn't fire back.
But everybody overreacts to everything. That's what I mean. Van Jones last year, President Trump looks up at a widow of a Navy SEAL, makes a beautiful comment about her, and Van Jones from Obama days, who's never said a good word about Donald Trump, says he just became the president of the United States.
I remember that.
I mean, it's the whole thing. In any case, that's one side of the equation. There's another side of the equation, which have been a string of unmitigated disasters. Here are some of the highlights or lowlights of responses to states of the Union of the past.
I want to thank the Tea Party Express and Tea Party HD for inviting me to speak this evening.
You know, those are words that Thomas Jefferson expressed after he was elected president.
The most important moments right now aren't happening here. They're in your homes. Kissing your kids goodnight.
I'm a proud Democrat. But first and foremost, I'm a proud Republican and Democrat and mostly American.
I think I'm those things too. Whatever Governor Beshear tried to say there, a little anxiety. Stacey Abrams, who is clearly a rising star, just lost the race to be the first African-American woman governor of the United States in Georgia. But it seems to me her job is made much more complicated by the fact that there is a racist Democratic governor of Virginia, who at least as of the time of this taping is still in office, and his successor, an African-American lieutenant governor, who has charges leveled against him about serious sexual misconduct. That raises the bar, does something to the bar for her tonight.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. I think tonight is about her. Most likely, she's going to run in 2020. This is setting it up
for the United States Senate.
For the United States Senate, that's right. And so this is her clearing her throat on a national stage.
This is not supposed to be about an individual. Theoretically, she is speaking for her party tonight, not for Stacey Abrams alone, no?
No.
You don't agree?
No.
It is about her? You don't
I think it's a combination. I do think it's about her, a part of it. You know, I think any person that's run for office and lost is eyeing the next run, right? So let's be honest on that. However, I think that this is an indication by the party that they're willing to go a different route. The reality is that we haven't had someone like Stacey Abrams give a response to the State of the Union. And I understand in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot of horse and pony show, right? And we all know that. However, I do think it shows something to the base of the new base of the Democratic Party that they're willing to go with a voice that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, but when I was talking to David and he was saying, no, the Virginia issue is not an issue, like I say, I saw you nodding in agreement with him. How is it not an issue when you have a guy that was either in blackface or a Klan outfit or can't remember if he was in blackface, was going to moonwalk out of the governor's mansion, whatever he was going to do, and his African-American potential replacement, I wouldn't say credibly charged, but is at least charged with sexual misconduct. Isn't that a huge thing in the room when the Democrats have been accusing this president of racism for his immigration policies? I mean, how do they ignore that? How does she ignore that?
Well, I mean, I don't think that they're ignoring it, but right now she's being asked to speak to the country. She's not being asked to talk about the issue in Virginia, right? And I understand that there's allegations on all sides around who's racist, whether it's this side or that side, but I think that the issue of racism is something that as a country we need to reconcile ourselves with, right? And I think that that's what we're starting to see. But I don't think that the State of the Union response by Stacey Abrams is really to speak to that in particular, but really to talk to the country of what kind of vision Democrats could have that is different. Because the reality is that Stacey spoke different than most regular Democrats. Right? And I think that that's an indication from the party saying, well, let's see, maybe we can take a different kind of road here.
But she's also speaking to Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
Because that's the inside game that they have to play. Yes. He has to defend his
Republican
turf.
leader of the Senate. Well, since you gave advice to Donald Trump, why don't we end with your advice to Stacey Abrams? How does she achieve the goal that you think the two of them should try to achieve tonight, Joe?
Based on history, I'd say do no harm, first of all, to herself.
Look at the right camera. Don't reach for the water.
Drink water before.
And secondly, though, be a bridge builder, because there's so much acrimony in Washington now. A voice from outside Washington saying, hey, come on, there's going to be elections. We all want to be in the high road. Let's get it together here so we solve some problems and make people's lives better.
Joe, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Jim.
David, pleasure.
Thank you.
Wilnelia, pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much. Appreciate your time. You can catch the State of the Union and the Democratic response tonight at 9 o'clock right here on WGBH2 and on the radio at 89.7 and online at WGBHnews.org.